Wow. The range of things that you have heard here is really quite amazing and quite compelling in terms of encouraging us all to step up. We have about 15 minutes before lunch is coming in. So what I thought we'd do now, we were going to do a bit of a group activity, a little group activity, but I think I'm sure some of you have some questions for the folks up here. So what we thought we'd do is see what questions you may have for any member of the panelists up here.
Ms. Murphy, you're a restaurant. What kind of food costs do you try to achieve or are achieving? You're profitable. And the second question is, how many of your customers are clientele or students as opposed to what we know of around Bruce County?
Well, our food costs are significantly higher than what they're supposed to be for a restaurant like us. We don't consider ourselves fine dining, but because we do buy so much locally, we're willing to pay a higher food cost. So our food costs are more like fine dining. So our accountant wants our food costs to be 33%. Right now, they're more like 40 to 45. We're going to work on bringing that down, and that's hopefully one of the things that something like our food store will help with over time. And as a lot of our producers sort of scale up their production, it's going to get easier to source local food at a lower cost, but we're kind of willing to absorb that for now. So far, we're not making a lot of money, but our sales are really good. They're growing every year, and that's something we're just going to try to work on and focus on in the next few years, bringing those costs down. The second question about the students, they initially were not at all a very big part of our customer base, and we weren't aiming the business at the students either, in part because they already have several restaurants or pubs that kind of cater specifically towards them. And we were looking more at people our own age and older who maybe don't feel comfortable hanging out in like a nightclub kind of environment, or just want something a little different. So initially a very small part of our customer base, but it's growing every year. And the students we do get are really wonderful students. They're students who actually venture off campus, which a lot of students don't do even in 4 years here. They're students that are either interested in local food or in music and events that are happening, or are really into craft beer. They often tend to be older students. They often tend to be students in the arts or graduate students, like Dave mentioned. So it's exciting to see that growing and not, there was some fear that the students might take over and turn it into like a student pub. And so far it looks like everybody's really able to kind of mix and mingle together without it becoming an issue in that respect. And since I have the mic, I'm just really quickly going to go through that most important slide that I missed. Because my whole, no, it's too much time to put it up, I'll just tell you about it. But the whole kind of point that I was trying to make was about the relationships and connections. And the slide was about the Suds Club, so these people who invest their own money, there's so much more than just that money. They're investing a lot of themselves in the business as well. So essentially, although we have 53 or 54 memberships, that actually ends up being more like 150 sort of co-creators of the pub. So some of them are friends and family, but a lot of them are total strangers, and emphasis on were, because one of the sort of real bonuses is that we've gotten to know a lot of these people over the years. They all feel they're a part of the pub, and they have a stake in its success or failure. And these are people from all ages and all professions, so professors and doctors, which everybody assumes is basically the base of our funding, but there's so many more people than that. We have artists, we have gallery owners, we have undertakers, we have activists, poets, the Maytag man, woodworkers, 2 mailmen, oil workers, a journalist. We have young single men, we have entire families who go in together, we have groups of co-workers or friends who go in together to buy a membership. And they provide so much more, as I said, than that money. They give us really honest and thoughtful feedback, which can be a really difficult thing in the restaurant industry. If something's not working, they don't hesitate to let us know, which is really, really valuable. They're also sort of like a publicity army. We've done very, very little advertising, but they spread the word for us. They're always bringing in friends and family or anybody visiting town. And they have sort of volunteered a lot of human resources as well. So some of them stepped up and helped us paint the building before we opened. Many of them are musicians and play at our Irish session every Sunday night. They've donated artwork and antiques to help decorate the place. They host our quiz night. They help us find great staff. They pick up food and beer for us when they're coming and going from other parts of the community. And the best part of all is we opened and we had instant regulars. So if anyone's been to the place, a big part of the attraction is it's got kind of a comfortable neighborhood feel, and that's because there's a lot of people who feel they're part of the place. They've gotten to know each other through the place, and it's really what gives the place any character it might have. So thank you for letting me squeeze that in.
And there's several Sense Club members in the room tonight, too.
Isn't it great to hear someone passionate about their business too? That's great. Thank you very much. Other questions? I know there was one here. I know there's one here. Okay. There was one here, and then
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to know about our food store. Is that 100% volunteer-based? Has it morphed into a social enterprise? Which I'm thinking perhaps is, if it has been its natural progression.
So last year, it was run completely by volunteers with the exception of the CACL staff. They were paid. This year, we have registered as a nonprofit because there's still no real official social enterprise way to register. So our goal is, though, to be self-sufficient.
it's typical Nova Scotia. No, you go.
This is almost maybe more of a comment. And Rose, it was when you were speaking, and I thought this sometimes when we're talking about how can we move forward and change. Something you said resonated with me, and I thought you're not giving yourself enough credit. You made the comment. You said we're just normal people. We don't have degrees. We didn't have money. But I have to just say I commend you because what you have is such huge spirit and you have a dream to do something, and that is really what we need to be able to move Nova Scotia forward. So I just wanted to say that you need to give yourself more credit in the sense you are doing amazing things, not just with the restaurant but also with the partnership with our food store. I just think it's incredible that we have people who are willing to step up as we're talking about. But yeah, you know what? University degree wouldn't have cut it to go where you're going. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay.
Dave, why Dartmouth, not Antigonish? No offense to Dartmouth, but just out of curiosity.
Well, that's a great question, and that was the decision of, there are two parts to it. So it was the decision of the fellas that were taking the plunge to do this full time, and they wanted to live in the city, and so that was a natural choice, and I understood that for sure. And the second reason was the available support. So the wonderful thing about being a spin-off company that lives in an incubation facility is that the walls can change whenever you want them to. So there's no commercial lease, and so as you find the doubling time is very quick, and so you can keep pushing down walls, moving into different units, and the lease is only short term, and you can move whenever you want. So it's very flexible space that allows for fast growth, and that's been really important and really useful, and it would be something that would ideally exist everywhere, but it doesn't right now.
I was just wondering about
online food store, is it going to be just in Antigonish or is it going to be Nova Scotia-wide?
So, oh, thank you. Right now we're focusing on Antigonish, but the software will allow us to repeat the process in other communities and connect with those other food hubs. So our goal is to expand product squad. And well, it's not too official. Yeah. We're hoping there's going to be some transportation that will bring the food bags to other communities outside the town itself, but we've got some work to do on.
Good question here. Well, first comment, congratulations to you all. It's something inspiring for, I work for the Chamber of Commerce for the Strait area, and seeing businesses like yours develop in the region is just, you know, it helps me do my job and it helps encourage, you know, light a fire under somebody's butt to kind of get things done. So it's nice to see that happening around here, especially the sustainability side on local, that type of product. That's great. But I also wanted to talk about the potential for LNG plants that are in the area. There's 3 potential opportunities here that could create approximately 3,200 jobs. And what Dave's looking into could help reduce that risk of hydraulic fracturing or in our region. So I mean, that type of technology will help products like that, because these products are these projects that are coming online are looking for supply. They're looking into the States instead of creating jobs in our own backyard. And that east-west dynamic that heads out west, that 20 to 30 age, if you polled what jobs they're in, it's oil and gas. So we want them to come back with the experience they have. That's a opportunity. I'm not saying it's the only opportunity, but when you tie both into it, that's so I want to commend Dave on trying to, you know, push a product that's, you know, can help this project move forward.
So I just have a question. This is a general question, although maybe specific to Rose, but accessing capital. I know that the Suds Club, you cited 10%, but you still obviously had a lot of additional capital that you had to raise, and maybe others can also comment on this. Can you talk a little bit about that and the experience around getting additional capital?
Sure. It was definitely not easy, especially as a restaurant. Nobody, like banks, nobody likes restaurants. So one really great thing, XCDC had a program running the self-employment benefits program, so we were able to take advantage of that for a little while. So they sort of provide support in business development and planning, and you collect EI for a certain amount of time so you can focus all your time on that business. So we were actually only on the program for a few months, and then we were kicked off because we weren't making enough progress. We just could not secure a location, which is, you know, that whole problem. You need a location to get the funding, you need the funding to get the location, and we were really trapped in that for a while. But the best thing that came out of that XCDC program was Melissa McMaster introduced us to a few people. So one of them was a local accountant. So he signed off. We spent a lot of time on our business plan. He looked over all our projections and signed off on them. So having that guy behind us when we were going to talk to other potential lenders lent us a little bit more credibility. She also introduced us to a very well-known and respected woman in the business community here, and she helped put us in touch with a number of individuals, just community members who live in town here, who liked the sound of the business and the project and were willing to loan us their own money, sort of a more traditional loan where we're paying 5% interest. They have a certain amount of security in the building that we bought. But these were all community members that stepped up, and from them we borrowed an additional $100,000. So 40% between the community lenders, the Suds Club, and our small amount that we were able to put in of our own money, that was about 40 to 45% of our total need to start the business. And with even with all of that and this wonderful business plan, none of the other banks would touch us, but the credit union has been really wonderful in working with us. And we wouldn't really want to work with anyone else anyway, so it works out nicely.
Thanks very much. And I just want to comment, Darcy, I just sort of offer it out there, and this goes for everybody. Speaking from the work that I do, you have, for example, you have a Gaelic speaker on staff at your pub, and just the opportunity, I think, to incorporate language, and not just specific to Gaelic, which is obviously a local asset here, but any other language communities that might be appropriate for adding that value add to signage, interpretation, whatever work you're doing. I think that has an impact, and sometimes it's something that's not thought of, but I think it has an impact in terms of how people feel about where they go, where they socialize, the experiences that they have. I've had numerous Gaelic conversations in your pub. Not that I've been in there many times, but I have been in there, and it's just great. It's just a wonderful part of our community.
I just had a flashback back to the credit union. I used to come out, I was the manager in Harvard Bush, and I came out of that. There was a picture on the wall of Moses Cody. All men should have a fair share of the wealth they helped to create. And I'm so honored to hear the great work of the Virgin Young Credit Union in the sense that they've stuck with the cooperative principles that the credit union was built on, and the Antigonish movement is alive and well.
Any other questions? I know Liz wasn't asked a question, so I'm going to ask her. Liz, what did you learn from the work with, what stood out for you the most?
That's a hard question. But I think I learned that everybody has a passion, and if we can enable and allow people to pursue that passion, then we'll be a healthier and richer community.
Those are fitting words to segue into lunch.
Phil, can I ask one question?
Sure, you sure can.
This is for you, Dave. We often hear in Nova Scotia about the tremendous wealth we have in our people, and also the tremendous wealth we have in our educational system, and that the numerous expansive college system, as well as the numerous universities we have in this province, and how fortunate and privileged we are to have that. And we often hear people say that if we could harness the resources and the knowledge and the energy and the opportunity for innovation that should be attached to all of these places of learning, that would really catapult us forward as a province. And that seems to be what you've done with your research lab, with your Flux lab, with what you're calling your pragmatic sense. So I'm just wondering, what has made that possible for you, and how might the lessons you've learned help move us all forward in that regard?
I do think that there's been a sea change happening at most of the institutions across the Atlantic provinces over the last 10 years, with much more emphasis on practical outcomes from higher education, whatever they are, whether they're social or whether they're technological. And there are a lot of good support structures for that. In fact, better than in many other provinces, I would say right now. One great thing that the Liberal government did was to give R&D scholarships to graduate students for the first time ever. And so that's made a very big impact in our department, for example, so we can support many more grad students working on what are, in most cases, very practical projects because the theme areas are fairly well defined. So I think the universities can for sure, or are stepping up more and more all the time. And there was a second part of the question, which was...
what have been the lessons that you've learned that could help us all move us forward?
Yeah.
Some input research as well.
Right, so I guess the lessons that I've learned are particularly applicable actually to a small university setting, and I've been lucky to be in a small university, I would say, because the barriers are less apparent in a small place, so it's possible to be nimble in different ways. If there seem to be administrative barriers or other, I have my access to people is excellent, so I can't, if I worked at the University of Toronto, I wouldn't necessarily be able to just walk into the VP Research's office and say, let's do something about the situation that's blocking me from doing X, Y, or Z. But I can here, and so I've grown up in a way without knowing barriers really well, and I think that the small universities are probably the ones who have been changing the most over the last 10 years in the province, and have been the ones who have been the most effective in seeing